All right, let's get into this properly because this is one of those comparisons that actually confuses a lot of players more than it should. You see the new 107 version of Ferenc Puskás drop, and instantly your brain goes, yeah, higher rating, must be better. But then you look at the old 106 version, and suddenly it's not that simple anymore, because now you're dealing with two completely different types of strikers disguised as the same player. And this is where most people get it wrong. They look at ratings instead of gameplay, they look at numbers instead of how those numbers actually translate on the pitch, and they ignore the biggest difference of all, playstyle and skills. Because this is not just 107 versus 106, this is deep lying forward versus fox in the box, this is blitz curler and low screamer versus phenomenal pass. This is a striker that can do everything versus a striker that is built to finish. And once you understand that, everything changes. Now let's really break this down, not like a list, not like stats on a screen, but how it actually feels when you load into a match and use them, because that's where the truth always shows itself. The moment you start using the new 107 Puskás, the first thing you notice is how involved he is. And that comes from that deep lying forward playstyle, because he doesn't just stay up top waiting for chances. He drops into midfield, he connects play, he becomes part of your build-up, and instantly your attack feels more fluid, more connected, more unpredictable. And when you combine that with 94 offensive awareness, you start to see something special. Because he still knows when to make runs, he still knows when to push forward. But now he's doing more than just finishing. He's actually helping you create chances. Then you look at his ball control, 90, his dribbling, 90, his tight possession, 91. And this is where the difference starts to show, compared to the old version, because this one feels smoother when you're on the ball. He doesn't panic under pressure. He can receive the ball, turn, and actually do something with it. And in tight matches where space is limited, that matters more than people think. Now let's talk about the most important stat for any striker, finishing, and both versions have 100 finishing. So on paper, they're the same. But here's where it gets interesting, because finishing is not just about the number, it's about the situations you get into. And the new 107 Puskas creates more situations for himself, which means you'll actually feel his finishing more often. And then you add 90 curl with blitz curler, and suddenly this guy becomes a long-range threat in a way the old version isn't. Because blitz curler is one of those skills that changes games. Not just moments, because now you don't need the perfect chance. You don't need to be inside the box. You can cut inside from distance, shoot, and it's a goal. And when you combine that with low screamer, now you've got a striker who can score from anywhere. And that's what makes the 107 version feel dangerous even when you're not playing perfectly. Now let's compare that to the old 106 Puskás, because this is where things flip completely, because fox in the box is a completely different mentality. This version does not drop deep, he does not link play, he stays in the box, he waits, he positions himself, and with 93 offensive awareness, he's still very good at finding space. But the way he finds space is different. It's more traditional, more direct, more about being in the right place at the right time, rather than creating the opportunity himself. Now when you look at his ball control, 92, tight possession, 92, you might think he's smoother. And in some situations, he actually is, especially in tight spaces inside the box. But outside the box, when you need to carry the ball or create something, he doesn't feel as impactful as the 107 version. And this is where phenomenal pass comes in, because this is the biggest difference in skills. And it changes how you use him, because now, instead of being a long-range shooter like the new version, the old Puskás becomes more of a facilitator. He can drop slightly, receive the ball, and play insane passes, and that's something the new version doesn't focus on as much. But here's the thing. Do you really need your striker to be a playmaker? That's the real question, because in most systems, your striker's job is to score, not to pass. And while phenomenal pass is useful, it's not as game-breaking as blitz curler, because one creates chances, the other finishes them. And in eFootball, finishing is what wins matches. Now let's talk about pace, because this is another subtle difference that people overlook. The new 107 Puskás has 91 speed and 94 acceleration, while the old 106 has 88 speed and 95 acceleration. So the old version might feel slightly quicker off the mark in very short bursts, but the new version has better overall movement when running into space. And in real gameplay, that means the 107 version is better in transitions, better in counterattacks, better at exploiting space behind defenders. Then you look at kicking power, both at 92, balance both at 91, so physically they're very similar. But again, it's not about the numbers, it's about how they use those numbers. The new version uses that power for long shots, for screamers, for moments where you just shoot and hope, and it still goes in. While the old version uses it more inside the box, more controlled, more precise, more traditional finishing. Now let's talk about how they actually feel in matches, because this is where everything becomes clear. When you use the 107 Puskas, you feel like you have more options. You're not limited. You can drop deep, you can dribble, you can shoot from distance, you can create, you can finish, and that versatility makes him dangerous in every phase of the game. You're never out of the game with him on the pitch because even if your buildup is struggling, he can create something out of nothing. But when you use the 106 Puskas, it's different. You're more dependent on your team. You need good buildup. You need good passing. You need to get the ball into the right areas because he's not going to create chances out of nothing. But when you do create those chances, he's deadly. He finishes them cleanly, efficiently, almost automatically. So now the question becomes, which one is actually better? And the answer is not as simple as this one is better than that one. Because it depends on how you play. If you're someone who likes quick counterattacks, long shots, unpredictable play, then the 107 Puskas is clearly better. Because he gives you more tools, more ways to win, more ways to break defenses. But if you're someone who plays structured football, builds up carefully, creates clear chances, then the 106 Puskas might actually suit you more. Because he will finish those chances more consistently in traditional striker situations. But let's be honest. In the current state of eFootball, where matches are fast, unpredictable, and often chaotic, having a player that can do more is usually better than having a player that does one thing perfectly, and that's why, for most players, the 107 Puskas is the better choice. Not because of the rating, but because of what he brings to the game. Because Blitz Curler and Low Screamer give you goals you shouldn't be scoring. Goals that don't make sense, goals that change matches instantly. While Phenomenal Pass, as good as it is, doesn't have that same impact. So when you really break it down, when you ignore the hype, ignore the rating, ignore everything except gameplay, the new 107 Puskas is the more complete, more dangerous, more impactful version, and in a game where one moment can decide everything, that difference matters more than anything else, because at the end of the day, you don't just want a striker that fits your system. You want a striker that wins you games, and the 107 Puskas does that more often. Now just sit back, relax, and watch 2 minutes of Ferenc Puskás destroying opponents in division matches.